Research tells us, this is empirical research. Fact check me on this, by the way. You got a Google there. You got a machine in front of you. Fact check me on this stuff. The American Psychological Association and many others have done studies. If you stop multitasking, your efficiency goes up at least 40%. 40%. Think about that. What if during the last year, with all the things that you've had to do, what if you could have gotten 40% more done in the last year? Your performance at work could have increased 40%. Everything you tried to do, even during the holiday season, could have gone up 40%. If your productivity in life could have gone up 40%, and then your positive attitude added 30% intellectual power on top of that, you've become a dynamo. Think about that. If your efficiency went up at least 40% and your cognitive power went up 30%, all of a sudden you've become a dynamo. And think of the edge that gives you. Not everybody in America is listening to me right now, but you are. You are. So cognitive ability goes up 30%, efficiency goes up 40%. Now all of a sudden people are looking at you thinking, what in the world happened to them? They're on fire. Now, I'm not even talking to you about the goals you set yet, the resolutions you set. I'm just trying to get you programmed to light it up. Think about that. Now, you're going to say, oh, wait a minute. Multitasking is a skill. There are maybe 1.5% of people in America that can effectively multitask. Well, let's make an agreement. Let's assume that ain't you. Okay, let's assume you ain't that 1.5%. Let's assume you're not one of those people that can multitask effectively. And you may think you are, and employers are so foolish. I look at some of these postings on job sites, and it says, are you good at this? Are you good at that? Are you a good multitasker? They're actually asking that like it's a positive. They want you to be able to juggle 10 balls at one time. They're shooting themselves in the foot. They bring you in and try to get you to do 3 or 4 jobs thinking that they're going to knock it out of the park. They got one person doing 4 jobs. No, they don't. They got one person fumbling because they're trying to do 3 or 4 jobs. Let me tell you why that is, by the way. I'm not going to bore you with a bunch of details. My friend Sanjay Gupta, who's the medical expert for CNN, describes it pretty well. He says, you've got certain parts of your brain that deal with certain tasks. And whenever you switch from one task to another task, your brain has to disengage from the elements it's using to perform those tasks, switch over to the other parts of the brain that are engaged with a new task, and it has to adapt and engage, and that takes several minutes to do. And then when it finally gets up to speed, and so you start using that part of your brain, and those parts of the brain that are engaged with maybe a numerical task versus a physical task, and it gets up to speed, it takes maybe 5 minutes to get to peak efficiency there. Now they come and say, well, here's a third thing you need to do. So about the time you're getting up to speed there, you pull off of that, and now you're answering an email over here, which is maybe it's an HR issue. So now you got to switch over to something else. So now that part of the brain's got to get up to speed, and it takes time. Now you got to go back to task 1. So the brain has to figure out, all right, well, where do we leave off over here? And you got to re-engage, and the brain's got to get back up to speed there. It's like a jet engine. It's got to spool up. It takes time. And so every time you switch from one thing to another, the brain doesn't just jump in at full speed. It has to read the situation, engage, start ramping up. We just don't do that instantaneously. It takes time, and it's also fatiguing. It shouldn't be called multitasking. It should be called multitaxing, because it taxes your brain and you get fatigued. So you go to your desk and you sit down and you deal with 6 or 7 things before you get to what you went back there to do, your number one priority. By the time you get to your number one priority, you're fatigued. So you don't bring your best self to what you went back there to do to begin with. So if I can get you in 2023 to have a positive attitude and to not multitask, when somebody comes and says, "Hey, have you got a couple minutes?" You know what your answer should be? "Actually, I don't. I'm sorry, I'm in the middle of something. Where can I call you when I finish this?" Now, that has 2 elements to it. One is learning how to say no, N-O, and 2, how to manage your relationships. Because they don't care what you're in the middle of. They'll come take 2 minutes of your time, which actually cost you 15 or 20 minutes to disengage from what you were doing, deal with what they're doing, which never turns out to be 2 minutes, and then re-engage with something that you were doing before or move on to something else. So you have to learn to say, "No, actually, I don't. I'm in the middle of something right now. Where can I call you when I get free?" You need to learn to control your relationships and learn to say no. That's part of not falling in the trap of multitasking. So, what am I getting at here? You thought we were going to talk about New Year's resolutions, and we're not to that yet, are we? Because what I want to do is get you ready to deal with this before you start dealing with goals or resolutions, because if I don't, you're not being your best self. You're not being your best self. That's what I want you to do, is get ready to approach whatever you're going to approach being your best self. Coach Mike Bear says, let's be our best self. Let's put our best foot forward. Well, that's what I'm wanting you to do here. Now, there's one more thing. You got to do this stuff consciously, purposefully. I said before, it's not enough to raise your awareness. You have to make a definite commitment in 2023 to be who you are on purpose. Be who you are on purpose. You can't get up and just react to whatever the world slings your way each and every day. You have to be who you are on purpose. Now, that requires you to have a serious conversation with yourself, and it requires you to write some things down. Writing it down versus just thinking about it puts it on a whole different level. It brings some objectivity to the situation, and you don't forget it. You remember I said some people said they don't do their resolutions because they just forget. They get busy multitasking, and they forget. Oh, I forgot I was going to say no to people. I forgot I was going to do this. I forgot I was going to do that. No, you need to write this down. You need to put it on your screensaver or whatever. Be who I am on purpose. Be proactive. Don't be reactive. Be who you are on purpose. And the second part of that story is I want you to star in your own life. I want you to decide when you are who you are on purpose that it's a starring role in your own life. We'll get to that at another time, maybe even today. But I want you to decide you're going to have to do this consciously, because we're going to finish talking here in a minute. And then you're going to have to decide, okay, what am I going to do with this? And like I said, the biggest mistake in life is you think you have time. You don't have time. I want you to start this today, not tomorrow, the next day, or the next day, or the next day. You've probably heard me say 100 times, you need to find the people in your life that matter to you and make sure they know how you feel before the sun sets today. Why do I always say that? I say it because you don't know how much time you or they have left in this world. You, God forbid, could fall over dead before I finish this sentence. I could fall over dead before I finish this sentence. Your loved ones could fall. You don't know how much time you have. So do it now. The things I'm asking you to change, do it now. I'm asking you to take a positive, optimistic attitude. Find things to be positive about. Find things to be optimistic about. It will increase your cognitive efficiency. Stop multitasking, which means you have to take control of your schedule, your agenda, the things that you're focused on.